Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together to study your word tonight. Help us to see the truth that you have in your word tonight as we study some more of Second Kings. Help us to learn from the examples and see how you continue to work even through the wickedness of this world. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Yeah. All right. So I guess anyone have questions from last time? I wasn't here, so I'll try my best if anyone has questions, but I can't promise anything. That's totally okay if not too. All right, so we'll start with chapter 13 tonight. We're gonna hopefully get through chapters 13 and 14, maybe part of 15 if we have some time. So to start 2 Kings 13, just gonna recap a little bit of who the last Israelite king is. So Israel, the northern kingdom, the kingdom that split off, they have been known as the evil kingdom, the kingdom that is worshiping false gods. And so the last Israelite king before Jehoahaz for tonight was Jehu. And Jehu was the last king of Israel that we heard about. He was kind of a loose cannon. There's a saying that I haven't heard a lot, but I've heard my classmates and a professor talk about before. It said someone drives like Jehu. I'm not sure if you've heard that before too. So yeah, I mean someone drives like a crazy man, like loose cannon.
Yeah, heard that version.
That's what I got told.
So I heard another version.
So yeah, Jehu was kind of crazy a little bit. God was going to use Jehu to do his revenge on two of the other kings, the last king of Israel before him and the king of Judah. So those were Jehoram and Ahaziah. And so he kills them, does the right thing, but then he just kind of goes off the rails after that and just kind of goes on a killing spree. And he still tries to kill a bunch of people, but God still protects his prophets at the time. So that was the background for this next king, Jehoahaz, that we got. So let's read that section on Jehoahaz, verses 1 through 9. Maybe let's split that up into two sections. So if someone wants to read verses 1 through 6, Ace, and someone 7 through 9. All right, Chris, you can take those three then.
In the 23rd year of Joash, son of Ahaziah, king of Judah, Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, became king of Israel and Samaria, and he reigned 17 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord by following the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit, and he did not turn away from them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel, and for a long time he kept them under the power of Hazael, king of Aram, and Ben-Hadad his son. Then Jehoahaz sought the Lord's favor, and the Lord listened to him, for he saw how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. The Lord provided a deliverer for Israel, and they escaped from the power of Aram. So the Israelites lived in their own homes and were poor. But they did not turn away from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, which he had caused Israel to commit. They continued in them. Also, the Asherah pole remained standing in Samaria.
Nothing had been left of the army of Jehoahaz except 50 horsemen, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers. For the king of Aram had destroyed the rest and made them like the dust at threshing time. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoahaz, all he did and his achievements, they not written in the book of the kings of Israel. Jehoahaz rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria. And Jehoash, his son, succeeded in his kingdom.
Yeah. All right. So first thing to notice in this section, the mention of the Asherah pole. So this was a prominent false god in Canaanite religion that oftentimes affected the Israelites too. They fall into this idol worship. So it was a female god. Her name was Asherah, and it was the sister and wife of the fertility god Baal. So they were kind of like a couple in this false idol worship. And her worship was especially awful. Her temples were full of prostitutes, and that's how you worshipped, by having sex with prostitutes. So it's really awful false god worship. And we can compare this, Paul, if you're thinking like, what kind of thing was this? Compare it to like, totem poles with the example here says the Alaskan Indians. They got the different animals carved in them. They're really tall sometimes. So same thing with the Asherah pole, these huge poles that you could tell, what they were from a long ways away. Okay, so first question here, number 1. The reign of Jehoahaz marks the beginning of the end for the northern kingdom. What happened during his reign that showed that God was displeased with his people.
His army.
He destroyed his army. The numbers there are really not anything exceptional by any means. Yeah. So 50 horsemen, really not a lot. 10 chariots, that's even smaller, and 10,000 men. That seems like, a decent amount. But in comparison to a prior time, I can't think of exactly when the example was, but Israel was asked to lend some troops to help someone, and they gave 10,000 soldiers, which shows that, okay, if they're giving 10,000 help, that they can live without those 10,000 guys. So the fact that there's only 10,000 left now overall, yeah, their army is pretty much decimated at this point. Yeah. What else? Give you a hint. It's something in verse 3. It's mentioned there.
Yeah, they were kept under the power of someone.
Yeah. Hazael, king of Aram. So yeah, a foreign kingdom has now come in that God has allowed this to happen and put them under his control. Clearly, God a lot of times comes and delivers his people, right? But this time he's allowing someone to come conquer them because they're not following his ways. And we'll see, it mentions in these verses that talks about the Lord providing a deliverer for Israel. And that's going to come up in Jehoahaz's son and grandson. And so we'll read those sections tonight too to see how God still maintained his covenant to them to still save them. All right. Any questions on Jehoahaz? Kind of quick, not too prominent. All right, so let's jump to our next section then. Jehoash, king of Israel. So this is definitely a little bit of a longer section. So we're going to break this up into a couple chunks here. So the first chunk that we're going to do is verse 10 through verse 19. That's the first part of his reign we're going to talk about. So let's volunteer to read verses 10 through 13.
Oh, go ahead.
Vic. And verses 14 through 16. Linda. And then last section 17 through 19. Dale. Gotcha.
In the 37th year of Joash, king of Judah, Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 16 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and he did not turn away from any of the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. He continued in them. As for the other events of the reign of Jehoash, all he did and his achievements, including his war against Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the books of the annals of the kings of Israel? Joash rested with his ancestors, and Jeroboam succeeded him on the throne. Jehoash was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel.
When Elisha became sick with the illness of which he was to die, Joash, the king of Israel, came down to him and wept over him and said, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. And Elisha said to him, take a bow and arrows. So he took a bow and arrows. Then he said to the king of Israel, put your hand on the bow. And he put his hand on it. Then Elisha laid hands on the king's hands and said, oh, keep going.
That'll be Dale's
okay,
section. I've already done it.
Sorry.
Open the east window, he said. He opened it. Shoot, Elisha said, and he shot. The Lord's arrow of victory, the arrow of victory over Ephraim. Elijah declared, you will completely destroy the Aramean Aphek. Then he said, take the arrows. King took them. Elisha told him, strike the ground. He struck it 3 times and stopped. The man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times, then you would have defeated Aram and completely destroyed it. But now you will defeat it only 3 times.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so an interesting picture there with Elisha. This is actually, I mean, yeah, this is the last time we hear about Elisha. He's about to die. We're going to read that in the very next verse. It's been a while since we heard Elisha come into the story, and so we're seeing this is a very momentous last time for him to come up. So let's talk about our second question here. Jehoahaz's successor in Israel was Jehoash, whose name means given by Jehovah, given by the Lord. Did he live up to his name and express sincere faith when he wept over Elisha, or was he simply patronizing Elisha? So looking at that section specifically, verse 14 through 19, do you think Jehoash was showing sincere faith here, or was it kind of just a mocking of Elisha? What do you think?
I think he was just trying to be a show off, trying to act godly in action, but in his personal life, he was not godly.
Yeah, we definitely read that he still did the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. That's a repeated phrase of a lot of these northern kings. What does that mean exactly? Well, you think back to Jeroboam, he was the one that started the false idol worship with the 2 golden calves in Israel. And so every time it mentions these people keep doing the sins of Jeroboam, it's saying, well, they're continuing with that false idol worship and that immoral lifestyle that Jeroboam set forth. So yeah, so we see that side of Jehoash. What other evidence is here in this section that might make you want to lean one way or the other?
It doesn't look like he was doing anything with his heart. He was just going through the motions. Like when he told him to do something, he just did the minimum possible. So that's why he didn't strike the ground.
Exactly, yeah. I was kind of like, well, okay, I'll do it. Like, doesn't seem very into it though. Yeah, another good point. So maybe it's kind of showing his doubt still in the Lord too. Look at the title he calls Elisha. That's interesting. My father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel. Does that ring any bells with anyone? So that comes from Elijah, when Elijah went up in the whirlwind of fire. Yeah. So when that happened, Elisha called out to him, my father, the chariot and horsemen of Israel. That title is signifying, okay, we recognize the power in Israel isn't from actual chariots and horsemen. The power is from God and the man that God represents. And so maybe Jehoash is showing some actual respect here by using that title, acknowledging, okay, I still know that God's power is what really keeps us safe in Israel, not my own army. So yeah, we see kind of a half and half pull. It's hard to tell with him where he truly was, where he truly lands there. Yeah, and so now question number 3 is going to really get at what Victor brought up with the half-heartedness there. So yeah, Jehoash took the initiative to visit Elisha when Elisha was ready to die. So good thing for Jehoash. The Lord blessed Jehoash. How? What showed that Jehoash's heart was not completely right with God? And Victor brought this up. You know, he gets told what to do by Elisha, but yeah, he's going through the motions. He's not very energetic about it. You know, something that might have caused him to be kind of reserved about this is, you know, he comes to Elisha tells him, you're going to be saved from these people at Aram, but he's kind of realizing, great, well, that means I'm going to have to go start a war. I have to put in some work for this. So maybe he doesn't really want to do that exactly. Yeah, so he shoots the arrow to the east. That's where Aram was from. So showing that arrow shooting out is going to be the victory over the people coming from the east. Yeah, striking, what Victor brought up too, exactly, striking on the ground 3 times. It's not wholehearted, not with it. And you might be wondering yourself, well, where are we getting that from? It doesn't really say he did it half-hearted. You know, look at the rebuke from Elijah. You know, the fact that he rebukes Jehoash shows us that, okay, well, Jehoash should have known better. Jehoash clearly knows something is up if he is getting rebuked by Elisha. He should have known to, you know, be into it, be aggressive, be trusting the Lord there. Exactly. All right. Any questions on that section? All right, we'll finish up this chapter then, verses 20 through 25. We'll split that up into, well, let's see. Let's do that one whole chunk. Can someone read that whole chunk?
Can I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
20 to 25?
Yep, rest of the chapter.
All right. Then Elijah died and was buried. Groups of Moabite raiders used to invade the land each spring. Once, when some Israelites were burying a man, they spied a band of these raiders. So they hastily threw the corpse into the tomb of Elijah and fled. But as soon as the body touched Elijah's bones, the dead man revived and jumped to his feet. King Hazael of Aram has oppressed Israel during the entire reign of King Jehoash. But the Lord was gracious and merciful to the people of Israel, and they were not totally destroyed. He pitied them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And to this day, he still has not completely destroyed them or banished them from his presence. King Hazael of Aram died, and his son Ben-Hadad became the next king. Then Joash, son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, the towns that had been taken from Jehoash's father, Joahaz. Joash defeated Ben-Hadad on 3 occasions, and he recovered the Israelite towns.
Excellent. Thank you, Corinne.
You're welcome.
All right. So, question 4. Why did God show favor to these kings in the Israelite nation? Looking specifically at verse 22.
The covenant with Abraham.
Yeah, it was God's promise to them. You know, it definitely was not anything that the kings were doing. Jehoash was still worshiping false gods. Lackluster faith in God is shown by his interaction with Elisha. So God is doing this because he promised that he was going to love these people. You know, it shows how powerful that covenant is. If I was God, I definitely would have smoked the people of Israel off the face of the earth, probably a long time ago. But he's showing his long suffering, his patience with them, his continued effort to call them back to him in repentance. All right. Number 5. How did the people continue to live in spite of God's grace for them? So we see the covenant moves God to not punish them yet, but what's the people's response once again?
They don't turn back to God. They still do the bad things.
Yeah, pretty much, you know, spitting in God's face, saying, God, you saved us, thank you, but I still prefer my false gods, and I still want to worship these idols instead. So we see God is gracious enough to save them, and they still reject that. All right, so let's apply this section to our lives now with question 6. Some Christians struggle in their faith. They may look like hypocrites because they often fall, sometimes in very public ways, but are struggling Christians hypocrites?
No.
All right. Do you want to explain your no, Chris?
Sure. You hear that word all the time. The hypocrite would be saying that we should or should not do something and intentionally do the opposite of what we just said. That'd be a hypocrite. Somebody who's struggling and says, I shouldn't be doing this, but then does anyway. That's not hypocrisy. That is someone just being honest with themselves. But I shouldn't be doing this, but I am.
Yeah. Sure. Any thoughts on that, Ace?
Even if the sin is a very public sin that's like visible to the public eye, you don't know how they're showing it personally and what things they've put into place to try to curb that sin and to keep it in their life. So even if they're repeatedly falling back into it, this might be a daily in and out struggle for them, but they're working on pain.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to, you know, for the most part, you should say that most Christians who struggle in their faith are not hypocrites, but there are some that, I mean, there's no other way of calling them, especially when they're leaders of a church or very public figures who talk the talk and then go and do whatever they want. So yes and no. I mean, are they struggling with it, or are they just, you know, I got past. I don't.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point here, Victor. There's two things that we're talking about here that we want to make a distinction between. There's a person who struggles with their faith, and they're trying and they are struggling. But then there's a person who says those things, but they're not struggling because they're just purposely doing the opposite just because they want to. So yes, that's important for us to know. And what's tricky about that is we might not always know that. It's hard. You might see someone repeatedly sin, but you don't know, what do they do when they go back home? Are they going home and, despairing over this struggle that they have, or are they fine with it? And they're saying, oh, that's okay. I'm gonna do it because it still feels good. And I want to keep doing it, right? So it's hard because we can't see the heart. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
Yes. Sometimes, there's the scripture that says, I think Jesus said, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And when you don't turn to God's word, you don't know that you don't have any thing to correct you. And so that's what if a lot of Christians are depending on the leadership they get from church, and they don't study the word, they don't come in here and try to find out. That's lack of knowledge that they have. So it's not like you say hypocrites, but they just don't know and they don't seek.
Yeah, so we need God's word to assist us in our struggle, to tell us when things are wrong and to point that out to us. Otherwise, we don't know any better, and there might not be a struggle, or maybe there should be a struggle and we just don't know it yet. Yeah. So this question can really be boiled down to, is there a struggle? The Christian life is going to be constantly a struggle because we're sinners and saints. We're made perfect by God, but still, struggle with sin here on earth. And so the problem is really going to come up when there stops being a struggle. When there's no more struggle left, that's when it gets dangerous. So yeah, it's okay to struggle, and it's a good thing to struggle, because where does our struggle lead us back to?
Lord.
Exactly, the Lord. When we realize our own weakness day after day, and we just keep going back to God. Yeah. And the awesome thing about that too is, this isn't something we learn on our own. Jesus tells us it's going to be a hard struggle. He tells us to bear our crosses. And so it's a good reminder to say, I can expect struggle, and it's going to be a good thing for me. And I know it will be in the end. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. Did you kind of like miss the weirdest part of that reading?
Oh, yeah.
They threw a body into Elisha's tomb, and the guy came to life, and it just completely goes on to something else.
Right.
That was no big deal.
Okay. Right. Yeah, so that's actually an interesting section that I was gonna try to bring up next. So thanks for the
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, let's talk about that. Is the power coming from Elijah's bones in that situation? No. Yeah. Who's the power coming from? Still there. Still with God. Yeah. And so this is another way that God is showing that he's still loving his people, even though they don't deserve it. It's this awesome miracle that happens, showing that God is still going to work even though his messenger has died. He's still going to keep his covenant with his people. And so that brings us back to our lives too. How are ways that God continues to bless us through messengers who have died before us? And you can even think about, the messengers, people from Jesus' time who have died. How do they still bless us now? And how has God worked through what they have done still? Well, let's pick out one specific person, the Apostle Paul. How does his work still benefit us today?
Well, we have it in print.
Mm-hmm.
But not just him, there's also people in our lives who have gone on before us that have either done something or, my godparents, I still remember some comments he had made a couple of times to me, just out of the blue. But yet that memory of that every now and then I'm coming back, like, it was a family reunion we had a number of years ago, and I still got the Bible you gave me for confirmation. And he said, good, read it every day. That was his comment. That was okay. Still remember that now and then.
Yeah. So that's awesome to bring that up. People in our lives who might have gone before us now, that still, the memory of them still helps us, and God uses that still in our lives to remind us of, that he worked with those people to be comforts and blessings to us. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Wasn't Paul like one of the biggest contributors to the New Testament?
Yeah.
And he wrote letters of encouragement, and he wrote letters of, there's so much that God has written through Paul.
Yeah, so God worked through all these people. You can say about any person who wrote the Bible. God worked through all those people to write these things down that he inspired, and we still have them 2,000 years for the New Testament, 3,000, 4,000 plus years of the Old Testament that are still for our benefit. And God is still working through that every day with anyone who reads his word, still being blessed by those saints who have gone before us into heaven already. Yeah.
And it's funny when you start to struggle. I mean, my first thought is, well, what's the word say about it? You know, and I thank God that he is faithful and he's there for me. All I got to do is ask and look in his word, you know, and it's there. And that's why he tells us to hold his word in our heart. Because I mean, I've had times when I've really struggled with things and it's the weirdest thing. It's like something will pop up in my mind, you know, about Jesus preaching to people. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. You know, I'm not such a dummy.
Yeah, your first thought is going to the word for an answer. That's good. Because typically mine is how can I fix it? And then after I get done screwing it up, it's like, you know, I really should have gone a different direction.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm the same way too, Chris. Okay. I feel that. Yeah. So, you know, even though, these people are dead, God's word is still living. And it's a good thing to go back to that living word that is still going to produce life in us. Yeah. All right. So now this is, I'm not sure if, I don't think Pastor did this at all, but when we went through these books last year at the seminary, our professor we would rate every king we went through. And we give him a letter grade. So I want you guys to think here. Let's start with Jehoahaz. So the king in the first section here. What letter grade would you give him? So A+ to F, anything between there. Seeing what he did. Let's review. You know, he stuck with the sins of Jeroboam. God punished him by putting him under a foreign power, under Aram. His army was completely destroyed. He's still committed to those sins. But maybe on the other side, you know, he did plead to the Lord. So taking all those things in mind, what letter grade would you give him?
F plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
F plus.
Yeah. Yeah. I came up with a D+ myself. I was like, okay, he sought the Lord's favor, which is kind of good, but I mean, it mentions, I know, a little generous, I know. I'm definitely going to Lord's favor. Yeah. Either way, not great. Really, really poor king.
All right, so there's a curve there. There's a grade.
There's a little curve. Definitely trouble.
I guess that is a curve. Why do a curve? Because when you're comparing them with the rest of the kings, unless you have a curve, they kind of all fail.
Yeah, okay, they'll kind of all be down there, So Jeroboam's definitely the F, the first guy, you know, he was awful. So we can only go hopefully up from there. All right, so really low, D-, D+ for Jehoahaz. All right, Jehoash now, second king that we talked about in this section. He still stuck with the sins of Jeroboam, so the false idolatry. However, we saw what he did with Elisha, went and talked to him, sought his favor, didn't necessarily handle it the right way completely, but he still went there. So what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, the other guy got it plus, so.
They did the same thing. Like they sought somebody.
Yeah, it's like they sought someone.
I need help.
Yeah, but did they?
But I don't like your help, so no.
Exactly. Did they really, you know, want the help at the end? So yeah, probably pretty low grade again. Yeah, I gave a smidge higher than Jehoahaz just because like he at least went to Elisha we hear about, so somewhat better at least, but he's still not great. So yeah, so keep that in mind as we go through these future kings too. We'll keep ranking them on our letter scale and see if anyone gets above a D. All right. So any questions on chapter 13? If not, take 1 minute, write down a summary of maybe one main point you learned in this chapter or something, an overall theme you learned in this chapter. Take 1 minute, write down one sentence about it. All right, let's jump on to our next chapter then, chapter 14 here. Start with Amaziah, king of Judah. So now we're hopping back to the kingdom, back to Judah. Both the guys we just talked about were from the northern kingdom from Israel. So bringing back to your minds, who was the last king of Judah before Amaziah? The last king was Joash. Yeah. Yeah. So he started ruling when he was the kid king at first. Started at a very young age. But right away, he was known for his really good religious reform. He helped restore the temple to its glory. So that's pretty good start for a king, right? But when the high priest at the time, Jehoiada, was killed, started to backslide into idolatry a little bit. So he had a really strong start, not so great finish for Joash. So now we're going to look at his follower, Amaziah here. So we got to start with a little bit of a longer section, verses 1 through 22. So let's start with breaking that into verses 1 through 6. Have someone read those? Linda, okay. And then verses 7 through 14. Another big section there. I'll take that section there. And verses 15 through 22.
I can take that.
All right, Chris, you'll take that last section. All right.
In the second year of Joash, son of Joahaz, king of Israel, Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, became king. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jehoaddan of Jerusalem. And he did right in the sight of the Lord, yet not like David his father. He did according to all that Joash his father had done. Only the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. Now it came about, as soon as the kingdom was firmly in his hand, he killed his servants who had slain the king his father. But the sons of slayers he did not put to death, according to what is written in the law of Moses, as the Lord commanded, saying, the fathers shall not be put to death for the sons, nor the sons be put to death for their fathers, but each shall be put to death for his own sin.
He was the one who defeated 10,000 Edomites in the valley of Salt and captured Selah in battle, calling it Joktheel, the name it has to this day. Then Amaziah sent messengers to Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel, with the challenge, come, meet me face to face. But Jehoash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, a thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon, give your daughter to my son in marriage. Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. You have indeed defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant. Glory in your victory, but stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall and that of Judah also? Amaziah, however, would not listen, so Jehoash, king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then Jehoash went to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 600 feet long. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of the Lord and in the treasuries of the royal palace. He also took hostages and returned to Samaria.
As for the other events of the reign of Joash, what he did and his achievements, including his war against Amaziah, king of Judah, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel? Jehoash rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel, and Jeroboam his son succeeded him as king. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Joash, son of Joahaz, king of Israel. Yes, I'm good. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Judah? They conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish, but they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried in Jerusalem with his ancestors in the city of David. Then all the people of Judah took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in place of his father Amaziah. He was the one who rebuilt Elath and restored it to Judah after Amaziah rested with his ancestors.
Big chunk there. Thanks for getting through that. So yeah, just to summarize everything we read in there, because there's a lot of names, so it can get very clogged up. So Amaziah comes to power. He's the son of Joash. Joash was killed by assassins. And so what does Amaziah do when he comes to power? He brings justice. He kills the men that killed his father. And we get that little part in verse 6 where it says he followed the law of Moses about that. The tradition at the time, would have been for this new king to come and murder these people's whole families for killing his father. But he follows the law of Moses, which says only kill the fathers for their sins, don't punish the sons for it, and vice versa. So we see, okay, pretty good start, Amaziah. You're following God's law that he gave you. So then we get going once again. So he has a battle with the Edomites. He defeats them, and now he gets cocky. He thinks, okay, I got something special. I can do whatever I want now. So he challenges the king of Israel, which at the time was Jehoahaz, and he wants to come fight him. And Jehoahaz replies like that little parable he gives there, comparing the thistle to the cedar. Of course, tiny thistle compared to a huge tree, the huge tree is going to win. And we're talking about Israel being the huge tree, Judah is the tiny thistle. So he's saying, don't be so arrogant, Amaziah. Stay in Judah. You won once. Be happy with what you got. But of course, Amaziah didn't listen. He's too proud, and he brings his own defeat when he tries to go and fight Jehoahaz. And so then Jehoahaz comes down, destroys part of the wall in Jerusalem, plunders the temple. And yeah, so that is pretty much his whole reign. And then he flees and gets killed on his own, like father, like son, kind of like that. All right. So the first question asks, Amaziah began as a good and faithful king. What led to his downfall?
He fell to idol worship.
Yeah, so first of all, he backslid into idol worship, just like his dad did too. So not a good start. Not a good start to get to that point already, yeah. What else led to his downfall? Yeah. He thinks he wins one battle against some people, all of a sudden he can do whatever he wants. And clearly that did not go well for him. We don't need to read this section, but so as Pastor talked about how the books of First and Chronicles are talking about the same things just for a different purpose. Yeah, so Second Chronicles chapter 25 gives a little bit of a bigger picture too of what happened here. Amaziah had actually asked Jehoahaz for men to come fight with him to defeat the Edomites. And when that happens, a man of God comes to Amaziah, says, send those guys back. God's going to work through the men that you have here in Judah. So Amaziah does that. But on the way back, those men plundered Judah as they returned back to Israel because they were mad that they didn't get to fight anymore and, plundered the other enemies. So Amaziah, is trying to get revenge here. But, he shouldn't have asked for those people in the first place because he wasn't trusting God. He was trusting himself. So we see his pride played out that way too. Yeah. All right. Question 2. What issues do you think God's faithful people wrestled with during this time of Amaziah's fall into idolatry, his defeat before Israel, and wicked Israel's continued military success? So thinking, all right, we had a good king, we had Amaziah, but he was defeated. Compare that to the other kings who are ruling in Israel. They're wicked. Why are they winning? So how might that, stir up some thoughts in their head? Ace.
Makes you wonder, if you should be trusting the government that God puts in front of you, and at what point do you start rebelling against your own government and wondering if this was even given from God, less from God himself?
Yeah, it makes you start to doubt God's gifts. Is this king someone who's following God's will? Is this person not following God's will? Especially for the Israelites at that time. God was, still speaking directly to them. So it makes you wonder, is this still the person God wants to be our ruler right now?
My answer is they were dealing with idol worship, godless living, and warfare.
Yeah. So you think about, look around at what's going on. Our king's not doing anything to stop this. We really trust him. He's not even, he's not living a good moral life himself. And that's clearly showing itself in the way everyone else here is living. Where's God right now when we really need him?
If you had some really wise people here that knew the history up to that point, they were probably thinking, here we go again.
Yeah, it's like brace for impact. This is not going to go well again. What about that comparison with Israel, whose kings were, we can definitely say, were more wicked than Judah's kings, but they beat Judah, and how might that cause some doubts in their heads?
Well, they're still failing miserably regardless, right? I mean, they have temples to other gods. I mean, that kind of tells you, and who's leading who is the leader, the king leading the people, or the people leading the king? Because those idols or those pagan gods came from their intermarriages, yeah, you're supposed to, I mean, God puts leaders in that position to guide people, but when they're not guiding the people, they're falling into the same things that the people are doing. It's not a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, not necessarily the Christian leader. Exactly. And you see how that hurts his people who might have been true believers, who might have been trying to follow the king, and they don't really have anyone to follow there, right? So yeah, it makes them, that hurts, that they might be following God, but they're getting hurt because their king isn't. And God, unfortunately, there are times when wickedness is punished, and that's all right. But God uses these things, these hard times, to strengthen Christians too. So even though it would have been really hard to be a true believer at that time, living under a wicked king, it drives them back to who again? Back to God again, to trust him, not to trust their wicked king too. So, even though there might be doubt, God might have been working this for some people's good still in the end here. Yeah. All right. So let's just we don't need to jump to the apply section, but just a question I thought of going through this. Proverbs 16:18 says, "Pride goes before destruction." And we very clearly see that with Amaziah. His pride led to his own destruction. And how is that true in our own lives? Let's just make it personal. How do we do that ourselves sometimes?
Well, we think that we're all good and clear, and we only want to go to God when we're struggling. So when everything's good and clear, we're just thinking about, oh, well, it's just hunky-dory, and I'll just go to church every day, and that'll be it when everything's good. When I'm struggling, it's the only time that I really go to God. That's hypocritical in nature, but that's how a lot of people would tend to act.
Yeah, so kind of like a fair weather Christian. Things are going good.
Yeah, lukewarm.
Yeah, I don't need God. Things are going good for me. I don't need to ignore him. And that's a lot of times people fall away because they start to think, well, I'm the one providing for myself and I'm doing just fine. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
Go ahead.
So from our relationship with God, like just things that we take on in projects, whether that be at work or in our personal life, when we feel like things are going well and we're successful at those things, we keep biting off more until it gets to a point where we need to be asking for help. And we don't, because it's been going well. We want to be able to live up to our past or our reputation, and then it's too much for us to handle on our own. So ask for help then.
Yeah. Linda.
For me, I mean, I have a real problem with our government nowadays. I mean, I know that I should be praying for our government, and I do, but they got some real idiots in Washington. I mean, it's hard to every day, be faithful and pray for our leaders, even if they are stupid. But, I mean, let's face it. I mean, America has turned away from God. And, as Christians, we spur that along in the fact that we allow it to happen. Don't vote or, don't express things that we feel and believe are right, and it's really hard. It's something I really, really struggle with, because I mean, every time I hear something that Biden does, I just want to scream. It's like, you are an idiot.
We still want to, we still respect them because God has put them there, and that actually gets to our one of our other apply questions. We'll jump to that right now. Number 6, if you want to turn to that one. Clearly Judah was experiencing a time when they didn't have God's word in them. And just before we jump back in the section, so when we talk about Jeroboam now, we'll hear that God starts to pull back his word from Israel as a punishment from them. So is our country experiencing a famine of God's word?
Yes.
Yeah. But I find it interesting that just over 20 years ago, September 11th, after that, the churches were full. After something like that happened. And then you go through the chaotic stuff we're going through right now, but it seems like it takes something of that nature to get the country to turn back. But then, you know, it's almost like reading the Old Testament. After a time, we're right on back to where we were before.
That's exactly it.
Or worse.
Yeah, it's God uses those things as you know, for believers to chastise them, to bring them back to him, to point them, hey, you guys are getting away from me, you know, stop, come back to me. And so, yeah, God will use things like that. And it seems like, you know, the more those kind of things happen now, we don't see the same reactions anymore, not necessarily. And, you know, you think about where has these other famines from God's word happened before? Well, think about, you know, USSR, where religion like that was outlawed. China right now, we've had to pull our own missionaries and stuff out of China because of what the government has said. Thankfully for us right now, we still have freedom of religion, freedom of speech to teach God's word and truths. But, you know, maybe what we're seeing in the patterns of our country right now is maybe we are leading down a path where God, you know, might be pulling back from us, you know. It seems like at least back, you know, 50 years or so ago, we were a much more religious country. Many more people were in church studying God's word. And we clearly see the decline of that now. So is this God's punishment on America as a whole? Not necessarily on his people, but, you know, saying, well, I've given you your chance now with my word. You've rejected me. I'm moving on now somewhere else. God has clearly done that in the past before. So, you know, maybe we're seeing the patterns here now, which is a scary truth. But, you know, it drives us to trust in God more, to say, well, I got to keep going back to God now, even if this is what's happening around me here. Aze, I saw your hand was up earlier too. You got anything?
I was off track. I was going to go with a different example of, not that I disagree with please represent a different, but at the time of Reformation, it was, they were dangerously close to losing the truth of the word. So I think that was recent, but in comparison with the whole Bible, like that was definitely a time where they were losing the word.
Yeah, another great example of that brings up the flip side of it too. Even if there is a famine of God's word somewhere, God's going to make sure his word isn't lost though. Still, it's gonna continue somewhere. And we see with the culmination of what Jesus teaches, we see the culmination of those religious leaders of the times, the Pharisees and Sadducees. They had so much abused God's word from that point to now. And Jesus says, the kingdom of God is being removed from the nation of Israel now. It is time for that judgment. It's going out to all the world now, to the Gentiles. And so, yeah, we see God will continue his word, even though it might be a famine in certain places. Yeah. All right, so let's finish up chapter 14 then. Jeroboam, the second king of Israel. I can just read this section quick so we can get into the questions and have some more good discussion. So, Jeroboam, second king of Israel now. So back to the northern kingdom, back to Israel. In the 15th year of Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, king of Israel, became king in Samaria, and he reigned 41 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord and did not turn away from any of the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, which he had caused Israel to commit. He was the one who restored the boundaries of Israel from Lebo Hamath to the Sea of Arabah, in accordance with the word of the Lord, the God of Israel, spoken through his servant Jonah, son of Amittai, the prophet from Gath-hepher. The Lord had seen how bitterly everyone in Israel, whether slave or free, was suffering. There was no one to help them. And since the Lord had not said he would blot out the name of Israel from under heaven, he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, son of Jehoash. As for the other events of Jeroboam's reign, all he did and his military achievements, including how he recovered for Israel both Damascus and Hamath, which belonged to Yaudi, are they not written in the book of the annals of the king of Israel? Jeroboam rested with his fathers, the king of Israel, and Zechariah his son succeeded him. So, just to put that in maybe an easier summary, Jeroboam comes to power. He still does the sins of Jeroboam, the idolatry, all that stuff repeated over and over again. But now we see the fulfillment of what Jehoash did with Elisha. Remember, he said God promised he would defeat the nation of Aram, but since Jehoash only did it 3 times, he only won part of the battle. Well, now his son comes up, God fulfills that promise. He defeats Aram the whole way, and he reclaims all the territory back that Aram had taken from them. All right, so number 3, how was God's mercy for Israel seen again, this time under the leadership of Jeroboam II?
Israel was restored and blessed.
Yeah, there was blessings for them happening at this time. In their military campaigns, they were winning. They beat Aram. They returned all that territory. They were having a solid economy because of that too. So God was still blessing them, even though they were still worshiping idols. So that's incredible to think about. Once again, why does God bless them though?
With the covenant.
Because the covenant, yeah, it goes back to that, the promise he made. I promise not to blot them out, so I'm gonna stick with them and continue to bless them right now. All right, question number 4. At this time, however, the prophet Amos spoke a shocking message to the Israelites at Bethel, the location of the long-standing calf shrine. Read Amos 8, verse 11 and 12. What was his warning? And I got that bookmark here, so I'll read that for us. The days are coming, declares the sovereign Lord, when I will send a famine through the land, not a famine of food or a thirst of water, but a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. Men will stagger from sea to sea and wander from north to east, searching for the word of the Lord, but they will not find it. So Amos goes to Bethel. This is the location of one of those 2 calves, those golden calves that they've been worshiping. And he says, God's word is going to be taken from you guys. It's not going to be around. We talked about that with the apply question already. So, you see how it's kind of scary that is. And a very subtle, detail in this, which is cool to look at. In verse 25, we get the mention of Jonah, the prophet Jonah. And, we have his book, his short book, those 4 chapters. And Jonah got sent to Assyria. So we see in Jonah, God's taking his word away from Israel. He's sending it to other people now. And we see that actively in the sending of Jonah out of Israel. So scary times for them, but it's happening. Ace.
Could this happen again, like in a matter of time where he says like God's word will be taken from you? Could that really even happen at this point where the Bible's so accessible, it's in all languages, like with that? Or is it more of a figurative sense that they're lost to like what our culture is, that we have access to the word of God, we're not living and reading it?
Yeah, it's definitely more of a figurative sense, because even when God is saying this, there are still believers in the land. Think about, well, this is in the past from then, but with Elijah, when he did the miracle at Mount Carmel where God sent fire from heaven that burned up his sacrifice, he still flees and he wants to quit being a prophet, but God says there's still 3,000 people that still believe in me. So like your work is not in vain, Elijah. So yeah, there's going to be times when certain places have a strong belief. But even in times that there's not a strong belief, yeah, there will still be people who have true faith and are still gathering God's word. But the famine is saying, as a whole, God's word is moving on from this place. Yeah, as a culture.
So many churches seem to have gone astray. It's kind of like the word of God is there, but it's not.
Yeah, and so it's definitely part of the famine because, yeah, it might seem like it's there. Yeah, but exactly like you said, Chris.
It's all about
really there.
What they do or their works and how they're doing things so they get blessed by God, or you have the other side, which is all grace and no law. You just do whatever you want to. God loves you anyway. Enjoy your life, kind of thing.
Basically, like Sunday Christians, T-shirt Christians, do whatever you want during the week, but praise Jesus on Sundays. And it's like I've watched over my youth through church culture, watching how it is slowly gone to the point where entertainment is making fun of God and Jesus, but make fun of another religion. Oh no, forbid that. But it's okay to pick on Jesus, and it's okay to throw other religions in everyone's face and make everybody respect their belief, but our belief is unacceptable.
Yeah, I definitely think it's safe to say America is in a famine of God's word. And yeah, I think you can definitely say that. Whether that is just blatant out there, saying we don't care about God's word, or if it's more hidden, whereas, we've taken parts of God's word, kept the parts we like about it. That's not really God's word either. It's more cleverly disguised, but it's still not the truth. And so, yeah, the truth is getting harder and harder to find in America. And yeah, I think you could say this is God, pulling away from our country as a whole now, because we've misused his word and treated it not as it should be. Yeah, and so we continue to pray that God preserves us that are still here, preserves us, keeps us in the word. Yeah. Chris,
You
you
know,
have
all the
something?
freedoms that we have in this country.
Yeah, that-
Get to that point.
Ms. Gano?
Yeah, you know.
That's what Jesus was saying when he said, we are the salt of the earth. And if you lost your flavor, but we have to pray and speak boldly, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and don't be afraid of it. But you're not going to be liked for it, but you still have to speak the truth when asked.
Yeah, so even as the word is becoming less and less popular, we still live it out and hope that God will still continue to bless and leave it in God's hands. God will bless it where he sees fit, and we trust that he'll do that. Yeah. All right, it's 7:58. We won't get into the last question. We can maybe pick that up next time on number 5, but any other final thoughts before we close with prayer? All right, well, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for blessing us with your word tonight. We see that there are times when it will seem when the wicked are prospering and your people are suffering. Help us to realize that, your blessings are on us still in the word. As it seems like a time where your word is scarce, please help us hold on to the truth and to continue living out that truth to grow it for you. Please help us learn from the examples of these kings to learn to not only turn to you in the good times, but to always be with you and always be studying your word at all times. In your name we pray. Amen.